Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this the law session on the college's virtual open evening. So thanks very much for joining us tonight. If I could introduce myself, my name is Giles. I'm course leader for law, and I'm joined tonight by Ellie White, Caroline Gall, and Faye Ray. So the law department is a team of four. The aim of tonight's session is for you to find out about the course, to ask us questions. So with that in mind, just to draw your attention to the question function on your Zoom. If you have questions, if you could type them in as the session progresses, Faye is going to sort of manage those and direct those questions to us. Welcome to our session. We're going to just outline a little bit about the course and give you an opportunity, as I say, to answer any questions that you might have. And this is just a sort of a substitute for what we would ordinarily do. And you could come to college, you could meet us, and you could view resources and try and sample a little bit of law. This is our substitute for that. So a little bit about the course. Law is a popular subject at college. It's about 250 students take the course. As I say, we're all a team of experienced law teachers. We've all got law degrees. We've all been teaching for some considerable period of time. And we follow the OCR specifications. So if you wanted to look that up, it's got a link on. It's easy to sort of Google that and to find out about the detail of the course. But all law specifications follow a similar pattern. So we'll tell you a little bit about what that entails. I should just draw your attention to the fact that we do have a law site which you can access through the college website. And on that website, there's a link to our law pages, and they give you quite a lot of additional detail about the course. It gives you an opportunity to try some law. There's a little profile on each of the law teachers. There's messages from students. So there's a lot for you to explore if you haven't already seen that. And we also have a Twitter, a law Twitter, a QE Twitter, which Ellie runs.
Yeah.
Want to say something about that?
Yeah, okay. So this is just a way for us to kind of share different news articles with you, or different webinars or podcasts that we think are quite interesting. We do update it regularly. I think it's a useful way for students to find information that will help to supplement their studies, help them to understand things and get kind of a broader understanding about what's actually going on in the world of law.
So a little bit about the law course. So as I say, we study the OCR specification, and students will study three areas of law. So we have a paper of criminal law, we have a paper of an area of civil law known as tort law, and we have a human rights paper. Law is an exam-based subject, so there is no coursework, although you'll be regularly assessed, and you'll get regular feedback on how you're doing, and there'll be assessments through the course of the year. But the actual A-level is externally assessed through three examinations. A little bit about these units. So, for example, on the criminal law paper, you'll have the opportunity to explore a range of offences such as murder, theft, robbery, and burglary. You look at some non-fatal offences. You look at, for example, attempt. So people who are unsuccessful in committing the crime. And we'll also look at some important defences. We look at 8 defences in criminal law. So on that paper, we also have a look at how laws are made. So criminal law and legal system. And we have a second paper which explores an particular of civil law known as tort law. Tort law is a collection of claims, and you may have encountered some of these. Possibly the one that you're most likely to encounter is called negligence. And negligence is based on the concept of a duty, one person owing a duty to another. And if that duty is broken and you suffer loss, you have a claim against them. You may also have heard of an area of law called nuisance. Or possibly an area of law called occupier's liability, the liability of an occupier to people who come onto their land. So we've got a paper of criminal law, we've got a paper of civil law, and our final paper looks at human rights and how human rights impact on our system of government and our legal system. And in particular, we look at 5 important human rights. So, for example, we looked at the right to a fair trial, the right to liberty, freedom of expression, the right to a private life. And we look at the impact of the European Convention on our legal system. So it's really it's a mixture of law. It's about 75% of the syllabus is law, and about 25% of the syllabus looks at aspects of the legal system, things like how laws are made, the role of the legal profession, things like the jury system. And we also look at some themes and concepts in law, such as morality, justice, law and technology. So it's a fascinating course. It's very interesting. There's something that will interest everybody. I mean, it's very, very topical. So if I just put a few examples here from just Ellie's Twitter feed. So, you know, what makes law, I suppose, incredibly interesting is its topicality. It's constantly in the news. So it appeals to people, to students who like to debate things, like to discuss kind of topical issues. The interest in law comes from its dynamic nature. It's constantly sort of evolving and adapting, and constantly in the news. Just thinking of some topical examples, the things that we've been studying recently. Do you have a duty to save a drowning child? Can you be found guilty of stealing your own property? Is it possible for police officers to serve on the jury? You attacked somebody and they had a blood clotting disorder. Could you be liable for their death if they then died? So these are some of the things that we've touched on in recent lessons. Law is a successful subject. In the last 2 years, we had 21 A stars with a 100% pass rate. Our A to B rate is something like 60%, 62%. So in terms of entry requirements, we're looking for students to have a 5 in English, either in literature or in language, because of the written skills involved in the subject. And then the general entry requirements to the course: 5 GCSEs, grade 4 above, including math and English. In terms of how we support students, we subscribe to a site known as Flipped Law, and Flipped Law provide resources on every topic that we study. So quite often we'll give students tasks to complete outside of lessons using this resource. So Flipped Law will have it's a nice kind of resource for students to have, because students can go away from the lesson and they can watch these videos. They're sort of usually about 10 minutes in length, which summarize every topic. So in terms of resources, we've got a college Google site. There's a screenshot of it here, where we place resources and materials on each of the topics that we study. So student learning is supported through Google Classroom, through the Google site, through our Flipped resource, law resource. I don't know if Caroline, you want to chip in here at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of, you know, I think what you were saying, sort of that you know, law is so relevant, and we often look at cases, you know, from the past, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago. But the great thing I think about this subject is that it is so relevant. There's so much, you know, going on at the moment in terms of, you know, human rights, you know, in terms of restriction potentially on our liberty. And I just think it's a subject that lends itself to what we're going through, what's on the news, and how we're feeling as citizens. So it's great for debate, it's great for discussion, and it is a subject where you're able to, you know, bring in your own opinion on the state of the law today, and, you know, it's not just about reading the law and soaking up what the law is, but it's about how does it work in the real world, and is it fair and is it just? So if you're someone that has a genuine sort of passion, to kind of look at how laws are applied and the impact that it's having on society, it's a good subject to approach from that perspective.
Just in terms of skills that you might develop, the skills you get in law are transferable. So you in law you will develop skills of analysis, evaluation. You'll develop your written skills. You'll develop your ability to construct a kind of reasoned argument. So logic and reasoning, skills of analysis, development, evaluation. If I just tell you something about the nature of the questions you might be given. As I say, about 75% of the course is law, and law is largely assessed through legal problems, scenarios. So you'll be given a scenario explaining that something's happened, and your job is to look at that scenario and to identify the legal issues and explain and apply the law. And that the skills that you're going to develop in doing that are going to be useful, whatever you do with your A level after you leave the college. So about a third of our students will go on to study law or something law related. But studying A-level law is useful, whatever you go on to do. It's useful for the world of work. It's useful for a wide range of courses that you might go on to study. And I'm sure Ellie and Caroline and Faye may add to that. Just a little bit about the other type, the nature of the questions you might also get. So it's a mixture of legal problems, scenarios, short answer questions. The short answer questions typically 10 to 15 minute questions. The essay type questions tend to be about 30 minutes in length, and the legal scenarios tend to be about 30 minutes. So the longest question you get in law is about a 30-minute question. And then you get questions that ask you to evaluate the law. So one of the interesting things about our course is not only do you study the law, but you also look at the problems in the law. And that's kind of, as Caroline was saying before, that's where the interest lies. You might study the jury system, but you find out what's wrong with the jury system. You might study theft, but you look at what's wrong with theft. So you're finding out about the law, but you're also finding out about that we have that there's no perfect legal system, there's no perfect law, and that's the kind of the thing that we're doing. So we're looking at aspects of the legal system. How does the legal system work? We're finding out about different areas of law. We're looking at legal problems or scenarios. We're doing sort of knowledge type questions, short questions testing your knowledge, and then slightly more demanding questions, which are sort of essay based. But in terms of what people go on to, we have students going to university to do a wide range of different courses. As I say, about a third are law or law related, but many other students will go on to do a wide range of other university courses. Some students will decide they want to go into employment, and some students will pursue a legal apprenticeship. But we've got many successful law former students who are working in law nationally, regionally, locally. Some are solicitors, some are barristers. But a knowledge of the law is useful in whatever you end up doing. I don't know if anybody, we're going to open this up to questions and answers in a second, but I don't know if Ellie or Caroline or Faye want to add anything to what I've just said.
Yeah, I thought.
Go on, Ellie, sorry.
I was just going to say, even if it's not like law that you do want to go into, I think a law A level is really, really useful because of those transferable skills that you get. The communication skills and those analysis skills, they're useful in anything that you want to go into. The way that you would learn to justify everything and evaluate it, I think that is really, really useful.
Well, we've got some great questions coming in, so should we start looking at some of those? First one that's coming in is, will law help me get into being a policeman? So is it a useful A level if I want to pursue a career in the police force? So Caroline, because you're teaching human rights at the moment, aren't you? Would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, so we've literally just with the second years, we've finished looking at Article 5, which is the right to liberty, and there's a substantial chunk of that area where we look at police powers that come under PACE, which is the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. So we look at everything from how a police officer should stop and search an individual on the street, what they should do in terms of arrest, and then when they take the individual to the police station, obviously there's various rules in terms of searches at the police station, interviews, taking sort of fingerprints and samples, and the detention time. So we look quite in depth in the second year in terms of police powers. As also as part of Article 5, we look at peddling, which is a police tactic that is used when perhaps we have two protest groups, one in one area of the city and maybe one in the other, and we don't want them to meet. And it's quite a controversial police tactic. And we look at cases surrounding people, innocent people, not part of the protest. I'm not saying protesters are obviously innocent, but people who've maybe been crossing the street and they've just got caught in the kettle very innocently, not part of that demonstration. So, and they've raised questions about whether that was a breach of their right to liberty. So in terms of, if you're thinking of going into the police force, it's relevant A level. It'll give you good grounding, not only in terms of sort of the police powers, but how sort of the legal system works as well. So I think it would be a beneficial A level, definitely, just to give you an insight into sort of the powers that the police have, and also how they apply the powers that they've got.
Yeah, and of course we do it.
Thank
A
you.
third of the course is also about criminal law. So you learn about the ingredients in a crime, and you learn about some everyday crimes like theft, like robbery, like assault and battery, ABH and GBH. So you learn things that you would need in the police force. And a knowledge law, if you want to progress in the police force, you have to take examinations, and a lot of those exams that you take are not just procedural; they're also about the content of the law. So it's a useful foundation for policemen.
Okay, thank you. And next question, if I ask you this one, Ellie, do you need A-level law to do a degree in law?
Okay, I think that's a really interesting question. Technically, no. But we do find, obviously I've done my law degree, as I said, when I was here, but what we do at QE is part of the foundations that you would then go on to do at university as well. So I definitely found with my law degree, it was interesting to know that I already knew some of that. So for example, what I learned in my criminal law module at university was exactly what I had learned when I was at college. So I definitely found that beneficial. The fact that I already knew what actus reus, mens rea were, I already knew the court hierarchy. I think that gave me confidence boost as well. Going to university is quite daunting. I think you're about to do 3 years of something, and I think having that little bit of prior knowledge, having that confidence in it, but also knowing that you enjoy it, I think that's really important. If you go to university, you're going to spend a lot of money, you're going to spend a lot of time. And I think it is really, really important to have done the A level first and actually know that you enjoy law. I think we get quite a lot of students here who would maybe not have thought about law at university, and then they do law with us and they change their minds and decide to apply to do law at university because they have enjoyed it so much. And I think that is really key, in my opinion.
Do you want to add to that,
Ellie?
Caroline?
And I just repeat, because like Ellie, I did GCSE law, I did A-level law, and then went on to sort of do to do a degree. And I think that the one message that we often put out, sort of an open evening, if we were having a face-to-face conversation, is if you're going to dedicate 3 years of your life to university to studying a degree in a subject, then dipping your toe in the water and making sure that you enjoy the subject and you've got an interest in it. I think it's a good sort of introduction, a good step into sort of studying at uni.
Yeah, I think the feedback we get from students is that they found that every student that's gone on to university has said that their A-level law has given them a valuable foundation, and it's really given them a head start as well. So it's not a requirement to do a law degree, but if there are there are strong arguments, there are good arguments for why taking A-level law is useful. And as I say, if you're going to commit yourself to 3 years of study at university, it's a good idea to know what you're letting yourself in for, to make sure that this is the subject that you want to study.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that if you choose an A-level in a subject area that you know you're going to enjoy, you're going to engage in it wholeheartedly. So if you find law interesting, then you'll enjoy studying it at A-level as well. And the next question is for Giles: what careers can you go into after studying law at A-level?
Right. Okay. Well.
Or also degree. It doesn't specifically say. So it might be, if you study law, what careers can you pursue?
Fine. Well, obviously, if you've got a law qualification, let's say you've gone to university and studied law, then you've got the option of pursuing a career in one of the branches of the legal profession, like a solicitor or a barrister or a legal executive. But people with law degrees, it's in fact is that only about 50% of law graduates go into a law career. And so the evidence is that a law degree is a very useful qualification to have. So some people go into banking, some go to management. People do all sorts of things with law degrees. They don't necessarily go into practice. But what they find is that the skills and the understanding of law is a transferable skill. It's something that gives them it's a marketable. It's something that's marketable and something that's kind of valuable. They understand how, because law tends to impact on most jobs and most aspects of life. So if you go into business, and understanding the law is really, really valuable. If you go into HR, a lot of HR is law. Yes, you go into banking. There's a lot of law in banking, human resources. So there's law in. You might go into to work for a local authority. There's lots of law relating to the local authority or to government. There are obvious career paths if you've got a legal qualification and you want to pursue law. But I would kind of promote law as being just a useful qualification generally. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that.
I think it's one of those ones that if you've got a law A-level or further to a law degree, I think that makes you a very attractive candidate for any job, realistically, because of those skills. To be a law student, I think that takes a lot of dedication, it takes a lot of hard work. You show resilience in order to do that, and I think it's not just the law that employers are looking for, it's those skills that you gain as well. And I think either a law A-level or further to a law degree, I think you really do demonstrate those skills which employers really like.
Okay, another question. If I ask Caroline this one, it's do we get UCAS points for achieving a grade A in law at A-level? So do you get UCAS points? And is a law A-level relevant if I wanted to go into social work, probation service, etc., progressing on those courses at university?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, studying 3 A-levels with us, I mean, specifically talking about it, sort of moving from A-levels to university. So each qualification that you achieve at QE will obviously give you a grade, and that grade will give you UCAS points, and you'll find that a university may make kind of an offer to you based on 3 particular grades. So the truth of the matter is, if you're wanting to go to university to study law, there's a number of universities out there that will ask for AAA or AAB or ABB, so quite high grades, and they'll also make an offer potentially based on points, which is obviously what grades you will get at A-level. So it's an A-level, so it's a traditional A-level. It's not an applied subject, it's an A-level, and you will get a grade at the end of the 2 years based on those 3 exams that you sit, amounting to like 100% of the course, and that will carry a certain weight in terms of UCAS points. And yeah, absolutely. You know, in terms of going into areas like social work, probation, you know, will be very, very useful for you to have. So absolutely, you'll be awarded a grade. It will carry UCAS points, and you know, depending on what the university has made that offer on, hopefully, you know, you'll get the grade that you need to sort of to move on.
Anyone want to add anything to that one? And another question that's connected with that is law useful if I want to be a solicitor? Giles, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, I mean, this just really adds to what we've already said. There's a bit of we're getting a bit of feedback. Okay, I'll try again. So adding to what's already been said, if you want to become a solicitor, generally speaking, you need to go to university and do a law degree. So an A-level in law is a useful foundation for, or a stepping stone to do law. It's your opportunity to try the subject, to make sure that it's right for you, but also to kind of to gain an understanding of the legal system and how law works. You know, 3 years at university will fly by. So having an extra 2 years of studying law is going to kind of I would say put you at an advantage. So you're beginning to kind of I don't know, absorb kind of law, and that's what you have to be able to do, I think, to be successful. So if you want to be a solicitor, typically you need to do a law degree. There are different routes that you can take. It's now possible to do an apprenticeship in law, where you kind of you work and study at the same time. So there are other routes into becoming a solicitor, but the conventional route is to go to university, to take a law degree, and then to get what's called a training contract, where you spend 2 years working in a law firm before you're fully qualified. So I hope that helps answer your question on that.
Okay, we've got another a common question here is what other good subject combinations go with law? So what else is complementary? Ellie, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I can do. I think law works really well with everything. It kind of depends. If you already have a career in mind, then I think it can be quite good kind of based around that. We get a lot of students who also study sociology and psychology. A lot of students will go on to like English language as well, potentially. I think it kind of depends. I think law works really well with everything because of those skills. And I know I keep saying that, but I think they're really important. But yeah, I think it works well. Psychology, sociology, English language, they're definitely big ones. So I think it depends on what it is you want to do.
Yeah, we get students who do languages, we get students who do science subjects. I mean, students who do science subjects tend to have good logic and reasoning skills. Students who tend to do art subjects have got good written skills. So they kind of complement it. So law requires different skills, and it's more about, would you enjoy law? Would you like law? Because it fits well with most subjects that are offered at college. Do you want to add to that, Caroline?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just in my role as a guidance director, so, you know, I work with students every day with regards to their programme of study, and you know, absolutely right in terms of what we're saying as a department, that, you know, it pretty much goes with everything. You know, we've had students sort of doing 2 art subjects and law, so, you know, it is really sort of a flexible subject. But I would say in terms of, you know, subject combinations, that is your decision. You know, you have got lots of time to think about that, and it's about a combination that is right for you. So, you know, what are you genuinely interested in? What do you want to commit to for 2 years? You know, also, how do you like to be assessed? Do you prefer that sort of end of assessment exam, sitting in the hall and just demonstrating your knowledge and understanding? Or do you prefer something with some coursework to just even out that pressure? Would you like a mix? do you want a logical subject? Do you want a creative subject? So in terms of when we're thinking about, subject combinations, you're an individual student, and it's about what you want to study with us, what you're going to be happy with. Because if you're happy, you are motivated, and if you're motivated, you are committed, and with commitment obviously comes the result. So take your time with that decision, and email the college or email various departments and staff, because we'll give you all the guidance that you need over the next couple of months, but take your time with getting the subject combinations right.
There's another common question coming up, the difference between law and criminology, and are they too similar to study together? I don't know who feels like they can answer that one.
Yeah,
I'll just step in from sort of a guidance director point of view, because I've spoken sort of within, obviously criminology is a new course for us, sort of this year, sort of 2020, 2021. So I've had a bit of a discussion with the careers advisors, because obviously a number of students want to potentially take kind of law and criminology. One of the pieces of advice is that if you're potentially thinking, number one, of becoming a barrister, criminology is an applied A-level. So the bar, which is the sort of governing body of barristers, don't actually recognise it as an A-level. So if you are thinking of going into becoming a barrister, that's something to think about, that the bar do not accept criminology. Despite the fact you'll have worked incredibly hard for 2 years, they don't see that as an A-level. So that's the first thing to think about, if that's what you're going into for a career. Secondly, if you're thinking of possibly going to what's called like a Russell Group university, like a red brick university, to do law, what the careers advisors are saying is you just need to be careful with that subject combination, because they may feel, some universities might feel that there is, potentially an overlap between law, criminology and sociology, and therefore they might feel that there's too much of an overlap between those three subjects, and that you've actually repeated some of the course. So, for example, there'll be traits in criminology that you'll cover in sociology and that you'll cover in law. So I think that's just something that's sort of come out this year as a result of sort of offering that course. However, we have a number of students that are doing law, criminology and psychology because of the way that those link. But I do think it just needs to come with sort of a note that, number one, if you're wanting to become a barrister, the criminology is not accepted by the bar as a pure A level. And also that, start maybe look at some universities if you wanted to do law and how they would view maybe certain subjects that maybe had some overlap there. So that's all I can offer on that, I'm afraid.
Do you want to add something, Ellie?
Thank you.
I was going to say they're quite similar in some respects. Some of the criminology units are law-based. They have a look at some of the elements of crime in less detail than what we would on the law A level. They do have a look at the legal system as well. Again, a little bit less detail than what we would do. I think it is more about kind of theories and what makes a criminal rather than the actual law of England and Wales that we would study. So there is some overlap, but it kind of ends at the kind of basic similarities, I think.
Yeah, I think.
So it's all right to do both, isn't it? Depending on what your future career profession is. Yeah. Okay, another question. Do we go on any trips if we come and study law? And are there any connections with work experience? Giles, do you want to answer that one?
Well, obviously at the minute, I think trips are a little bit difficult. But historically, we've been to the courts, we've been to Parliament, we've been to the Supreme Court, we've been to the theatre. We've been to last year. I think we went to Sunderland University for workshops.
We have a lot to do with the local universities, I think.
Yeah.
They will host workshops.
Student conferences. There's an annual conference at Teesside University for law students. So there are things happening in normal times, and so we can, you know, with luck, things will normalise next year, and we'll have an opportunity to do those things. Obviously, in the meantime, we're trying to find alternatives and different ways to kind of, you know, a lot of universities, for example, are running online workshops and different experiences of that nature. So we're looking out for all of that, so that we can vary the experiences that law students have. I'm just conscious of the time. I'm not quite sure when the cutoff is for our session. Are there more questions coming, Faye?
Yes, there are. There are a lot of questions here. Some of them are about the sort of different combination of topics, which hopefully we've addressed for everyone. And I've got another question: has anyone been successful? But I think you answered that, Giles. That you know, our law students tend to be very successful because they thoroughly enjoy studying law, so they engage wholeheartedly in the subject.
I can say something. You know, we have students who've gone to, you know, to just about every university in the country, including Oxford and Cambridge and the Red Brick University. We've got students who've got jobs in the city firms in London. We've got students who are barristers. We've got a student who was the legal advisor on Judge Rinder. So, you know, QE students are successful. They work in every law firm in Darlington, for example. You know, so yes, you know, law is a well-established course at college. It's a very successful course, and you know, it's a large course. I think it's in the top 5 largest courses in the college. So it's a successful course, and students enjoy law and they're successful. We may have to make this the last question, I think, Dave.
Yeah, I'm just. Is law hard then? Let's end on that one. Is studying law difficult? Would you all like to have a go at that one? Start with Caroline.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'd say in general, the A-levels, you know, they are hard. They're difficult. It's, you know, it's a step up from GCSE. That they're branded the gold standard of qualification. But you know, whatever subject you take at QE, there are going to be elements of that course that you're going to absolutely love and be very passionate about and enjoy learning about, and you'll find that you'll just click with that particular topic area. You know, you'll remember cases, you'll remember arguments, you'll remember decisions. And you'll become confident in that area. And there'll be areas of the course that you might find are quite taxing or that are a little bit difficult, or, you know, dare I say, some parts are a little bit dry. I think we all find that some elements of the specification, we haven't written it, but some parts are a little bit dry, and you might find it's, you know, a little bit more of an effort to kind of work through it. So I think it's sort of the nature of the qualification. They're so well respected, both by universities and by sort of businesses and then employers, that, you know, that they do have that element of challenge to them. But you know, what we would all say is that, you know, we are here to support you. You know, we don't expect you to come in and know the answers, and day by day, week by week, we'll build up confidence. We'll sort of build up that legal sort of ability, you know, step by step, so that by the end of the 2 years, you're able to kind of sit the 3 papers. So, you know, like any course, like any A-level course, it will have its parts that you just click with and that you'll enjoy, and then other parts where you just feel a bit, you know, God, I'm going to have to do a bit of graft on this to get through it. But you won't be the only one, and you'll find that across probably all your subjects.
I just say, you know, there are no easy A-levels, and law, you know, an A-level is a particular standard. And as Caroline says, you know, there'll be aspects that you find difficult. There'll be aspects that you find easier. But you know, A-levels are meant to challenge people. But there's huge amounts to enjoy in an A-level in law. Hey, you haven't had much of a chance to answer any of these questions. Do you want to say something?
That's because I'm busy typing replies to sort of lots of questions as well. So you've been fielding off the verbal ones and I've been typing replies. There's still a few to sort of get through, but I don't know, are we up time-wise now.
I think we can
But if I think there's only one, I think one more. Would law or criminology be better? But I think we've answered that one, haven't we? That law and criminology can both be studied with that proviso that Caroline mentioned. You know, if you're planning on going to sort of Oxford or Cambridge, you do have to be careful depending on what subjects you do. But if you're going into policing, I think law and criminology are good combinations, aren't they, Caroline?
Yeah.
Got a lot of
Yeah.
law criminology students at the moment. Another question, how does sociology link to law? Well, we do get a lot of students who study sociology and law. With regards to the overlap, there's transferable skills. So the skills you develop in both subjects, and the same for politics. You know, politics, the skills are transferable. And students who study those subjects, whatever skills you develop in one subject, you can use in the other, and there is some overlap in the content, which eases the burden at various stages of the course, gives you more confidence of certain aspects. But as all of the teachers have said, any combination is a good combination. Choose the combination that suits you, the individual, which is what I think Caroline said.
That's excellent advice.
So I think that's it, Giles, unless over to you.
Well, great. I'd just like to thank you for joining us tonight. I'm sorry we can't meet you in person. I've just put up on the screen, I put up just a reminder that we do have via the college website, we've got our own kind of law site, which gives you some a lot of detail about what we do. It gives you some sample activities. It has advice from current and past students. And I just recommend that to you. There's also contact details. If you want to get in touch with us, if you haven't managed to answer the questions that you've raised, please get in touch and one of us will get back to you. And we hope to welcome you next year for a real experience where you can try out law when we do our bridging and when things normalize a little bit. So I hope this has been useful to you. And as I say, I'd encourage you, if there's something you'd like to ask us, to get in touch, but particularly have a look at our law resources. So on behalf of everybody, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you next year.